And since we have plenty of time, everybody should expect a question. So, to the theme of Father's Day, and how I explained that there's different definitions of what a father can be. What makes a good father? What attributes, characteristics, etc.? Aaron, please come up here and share with us.
Thank you. What makes a good father is having good genes. What makes a good dad is the ability to lead by example and not in a domineering fashion, have compassion, have humility, actually change the stereotypes of what it means to be, I guess, a man or macho or just being masculine. I think that in order to be a good dad, you have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to teach and willing to learn. And it's not necessarily subjective to whatever gender your child is. I think that being able to be a good dad is taking the lessons that you learned as a child from your magnate and allowing yourself to incorporate that into your teaching without holding on to any reservations of negativity that you received. Okay. Also, I think that taking everything that you've learned, wanting to gather the best in you and see your children emulate past what you've done and become better versions of you and yourself. I think also being a good dad is making sure that you take care of every aspect of your life that could potentially impact your children's experience. So, the people you bring around, the spouse you choose, the character you hold, how you deal with them, being always cognizant of the impact that this could have on a child, never being too prideful to learn, too busy to sit down and smile, too... Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. And I like how you said that being a father, you have to be vulnerable. You never think about fathers being vulnerable. You always think superhero, right? Superman. But that's great. That leads perfectly into my next question. If you leave yourself vulnerable, you open yourself to learning from your child, not just teaching your child. What have you taught your father, or what have you liked to have taught your father if you had the chance? Please welcome Theresa.
Thank you for that question, Madam Tabletop Master, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. What have I taught my father? That's a very good question, because my father, my father, not my dad, was not in my life. So that is a very tough question for me. I had a stepfather who was my dad. What did I teach him? That is also a tough question, because even though he was in my life, he was our dad, I don't really know what I taught him. Pretty sad to say. He was there. Again, he was the father, the dad in our life, but it was always my mother who we went to, not my stepdad. And as far as what I taught him, I can't really say. Pretty sad. I know one thing that I do see is, and I hear about a lot of the relationships that daughters have with their dads, and I always envy them, and I always say that that's a relationship that I'm sad that I miss, that I never had the opportunity to experience. So what did I teach my dad? I don't have an answer. Madam Tabletop is next.
Sharing that with us. Oh, and just to clarify, when I say father, because all the questions have father in it, I mean all magnets and father figures. Next question. Everybody probably had one of these moments growing up before. Has your father ever embarrassed you? Please share your experience. Martin.
No.
Thank you. That's a very tough question. I don't think my dad has ever really embarrassed me. I think my brothers and sisters probably embarrassed me a lot more than anyone else that I could possibly think of. My dad is actually, I guess my relationship with my dad is very similar to the apple doesn't fall far from the tree type of thing, so we're very, very similar. We actually both have like the gray hair thing going on and had it very early in our lives. We're both very analytical, we both think very similarly, and we're both very open to a wide variety of opinions. And I think I'm actually a little bit more of a joker than he is in a lot of ways, and I'm not that big of a joker anyway, so there's not a lot of, I guess, environment and space there to foster any sort of, I don't know, situations where you would have embarrassing things happen. So I can't really think of anything that would be awkward or embarrassing off the top of my head. So that's really, I don't know, I guess I should be glad for that. I think that's actually kind of a good thing that you don't have any of those memories that you could, I don't know, sort of feel weird about. But maybe in the future I'll miss that, and if I have kids, you know, I'll try to create some of those opportunities to embarrass my kids. Thank you, Madam Tabletops.
Lucky Martin. I remember some because I translating for my parents in the doctor's office isn't always the best. All right. This is an easy one. How will you celebrate your father this Sunday, Mark?
Thank you. So this Sunday is Father's Day, and I will be celebrating the magnet of our family. Definitely would be sending him a card, and admittedly, I have not come up with what to give him yet. I've done stuff in the past. He's a big coffee drinker, so a lot of times I'll send him a different type of coffee, or something like that. So I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, so that's where he and my mom still are, and some of my family. So I don't always get back to see them for just something like Mother's Day or Father's Day or things like that. I usually go back, like during the holidays and like once during the summer. So I'll probably actually see him in a month or so. But yes, so I'll send him a card. I'm not sure though. I haven't come up with anything. I'm trying to think of what other. He's like techie things. So I was trying to think of something techie that's still reasonable. I thought an Apple Watch would be pretty cool, but those are kind of expensive. They run about $250 or something, I think, for the sports watch. So I'm not real sure yet. I mean, I could go coffee again, but you can only do that, a few times, and it's like, all right, I get the point, sort of a thing. So the good thing is, I know whatever I send him, whether it be a card, a coffee, an Apple Watch, or something else, I know he'll really appreciate it.
Next question. What useful advice have you gotten from your father in your life? MaryJane.
Oh. Father's Day is really tricky with me. If any of you heard my 10th speech, my father and I actually didn't even consider him dad until recently. He was a father. And that's kind of sad that I went most of my life having that kind of relationship with him. However, fortunately, there is a happy ending to it, and he did progress into a dad. About a year ago, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional, he's always been very closed off and kind of hard. Everyone's known him to be that way. When a very long relationship ended in my life, my dad cried, and I couldn't understand it. I was like, I'm the sad one. I just had my heart stomped on. And he said something to me that was very touching. sweetest words I've ever heard him speak to me. And he was crying because he was like, I'm your dad. I'm supposed to protect you from getting hurt. And he's like, and I failed you. Like, that's something Mom would usually say. And my mom's like, you'll be fine, you'll get over it, you're strong. And here's my dad, the softie, after all these years. And he said, next time, and this was the advice he gave me, he said, don't give all your love to someone. Save some love for yourself. And that stayed with me for the past year and a half. And I've grown so much from that. And it also shows me that my dad is a completely different person than who he was.
Good advice. I like that, because you have to love yourself first before you can be open to loving someone else. So that was great. What advice would you give a new father in hindsight, now that you've lived through it, or if you've had children, or if you've grown up with a father? And what advice would you give a new father? Doug.
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. The Nth Word on Fatherhood was a book by Bill Cosby. Anybody that has the opportunity to be a dad should read it, because not only is it funny, it's informative. And I learned this from a man I work with. I saw him reading it. He's going, oh, this is great. Because let's face it, who's got more experience than a new dad? Anybody has been at it a while. And what's better than to get your advice from someone who's brilliant? I know he's not in vogue right now, because it's true, he's a man, and we do from time to time think with the wrong part of our anatomy. You know, it just happens. Mm-hmm. But that would be a book I would highly recommend to anyone who is considering becoming a father, because it's important. You know, my father wasn't a stellar example. He was standoffish. We learned later he was bipolar, right? What did he teach me? He taught me that some of the things he didn't instill in me, that I had to go find for myself, were the greatest of importance. So, to be curious. Teach your children curiosity. Teach them to honor and respect who they are. And find good leaders. You know, I consider Bill Cosby to be a magnate. I've seen him once live in person. He's the funniest human being I've ever experienced, bar none. I listened to him for 2.5 hours. By the time he was finished, I was laughing uncontrollably, as was everybody else in the audience. So, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. The key word is Bill Cosby.
Thank you, Doug. That leads right into my next question. If you had to pick a celebrity dad that would be the ideal celebrity dad, besides Bill Cosby, because that's already been mentioned, who would that be? Sean.
All right, fellow Toastmasters. If I were to choose a celebrity dad to be the #1 guy, he'd obviously be Kanye West, because he has the brilliance to name his kid, was it South? So Southwest? Northwest? See, just as good. Just kidding. Kanye West, I don't consider him to be a great father. I think probably Brad Pitt, because he knows he's in a situation in his life where he can provide for himself, for his children, for many, many lifetimes. And for a while, he opted to adopt children. You know, that's probably the most selfless thing that someone can do, is to raise someone else's child and treat them like they're your own. I find that to be very noble. Later on, he did have kids, but it didn't mean that these other kids were like the red-headed stepchildren where they just get thrown in the trash. He still loved all of them equally, take them all out on walks. So I would say Brad Pitt is the best father celebrity figure. Thank you.
And our last question is for Helen. Share with us a memory of your father.
table topics, Master. A memory that comes to mind of my father, I was not very close to my father growing up. He was a ship captain, so he traveled for a year or 2 years at a time. We would not see him, and he's very, very strict. So whenever he was home, it was kind of miserable for me. It's like, oh, Dad's home. He has so many rules. And my mom knows me very well, and she totally trusts me, especially when I was in high school, when I go out with girlfriends and I come back late. She's okay with it. But one time I came back late after a dance. I just went out to eat someplace with my girlfriends after the dance, and I came home kind of late. My dad got really upset with me and gave me a huge lecture. I didn't do anything wrong, but it worried him, and so he lectured me. So growing up, I was very close to my mom, not close to my dad. I saw my dad as a strict authoritarian figure. But later on, when I was in college, they moved from Houston to Hawaii, and I went to visit them one time in the summertime. And so it was around the time of my birthday, so they decided to take me out to eat. We went to some Asian buffet place in Hawaii that was really good. And I can really eat at a buffet. I was just stuffing myself, and towards the end there's the ice cream cone. And so my dad said, come on, let's get an ice cream cone. And we both got ice cream cones. We were having a really good time and enjoying ourselves. And that was one of the really good memories I have with my dad. And even though it's kind of a small memory, there's other memories too, but that's one that came to mind just now. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for sharing your experiences with fatherhood, and I'd like to